Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It is somehow the end of 2022. I honestly can't believe it. It has been a crazy year for me, and as you can see yet again, I'm in a new place. So hopefully this means that on my side I have more time to kind of do what I want with the channel as well as streaming and everything like that. And so I figured why not, it's the end of the year. Let's sit down and talk about some of my favorite experiences at the movies this year. Um, 2022 in general, I think has been one of the better years, in my opinion, for movies, even if some of my favorite franchises have not been up to par. Because as most of you know, I'm a really big blockbuster guy. I really like blockbusters, but I also really enjoy smaller scale stuff. And so this year, I had a really good mix of experiences like that. And so I kind of just wanted to go through every movie that I've seen this year. Granted, I haven't seen everything that I wanted to see yet. So just disclaimer, I haven't seen Babylon or The Fablemans yet. I just have not had time to go out and do that yet. But I have seen some of the other big heavy hitters this year that I was really looking forward to. So yeah. Oh, and the other one I haven't seen yet is Glass Onion because the theatrical release window was terrible, and I guess I'm gonna have to watch it on Netflix. So I'm gonna give that one a shot when I got the time. But I just wanted to go through and kind of just bullet point go through each movie I saw this year, give some quick opinions on them. Of course, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the negative ones because I don't want this to be a negative video. So I'm gonna kind of go through those ones rather quickly. But let's just get started. All right. So I saw a lot of movies this year. Not every single one I've logged. So, if there's one that it's not on here, definitely ask me about it. And if I did see it, I'll get back to you. But this is kind of just what I was able to keep track of over the year. And so, probably the worst film that I saw this year was the Robert Zemeckis Pinocchio remake. I thought this movie was terrible. um, it lacked so much of like why the original was good. And that's the problem with these Disney live action remakes is they are never ever 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 even the decent ones, if there are even such a thing, are never going to reach the originals. And that's why I will never understand the obsession with doing these besides just trying to re-deliver the same story for a quick buck or something like that because yeah, I don't know what was going on with this movie. It genuinely feels like they didn't even try and they gave their effects artists work to do. They built some sets and they got Tom Hanks to show up as Geppetto. But yeah, I just thought this movie was terrible. It lacked so much, again, of that grit because what made the original Pinocchio so entertaining, in my opinion, is that grit and that that almost fear and scary factor towards the end when they're all turning into donkeys on Pleasure Island. On Pleasure Island in this film, they're not smoking and drinking because Disney doesn't want to promote that anymore. It's bad to show, I guess, that drinking is bad because then a kid might do it, even though they're portraying it negatively. So I don't really understand what the message there was. So in this, they're drinking root beer. Yeah, so the message of this movie was don't drink root beer, I guess. I truly do not understand what the attempt was with this film. It really annoyed me, this movie, and I wish I had never even watched it, quite frankly. I did not have a good time with this thing. So let's stop talking about it. Let's talk about another movie this year that I thought was a pretty big stinker, and this was a movie I didn't watch until only a couple days ago, and that was Jurassic World Dominion. This is going to be a pretty common theme on this list this year. A lot of big blockbusters this year, apart from a few, I just thought really missed the bar. Of course, with Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which was Jurassic World 2, I did not enjoy that movie at all. I thought it was terrible. I really didn't like it. And then to hear that that guy was going to go on to work on the likes of the Lord of the Rings, Rings of the Power show, which I might do a TV wrap up this year because I did watch a bit more TV this year than usual. But that gave me no excitement whatsoever for that project, and that ended up the way it did, and I don't really even want to give an opinion on it. Um, but yeah, Jurassic World Dominion. This movie just it's some of the worst ideas I've seen in a big budget blockbuster film. Um, the it's going for like an environment. I mean, all of these movies have environmental messages, but this movie was about like our food and like population control almost, and just like the idea that our crops need to be protected. And I get that, but making a 2.5 hour movie about it really didn't work. Bringing back the original trio, I don't understand why what the obsession is with bringing back old people from roles that they used to play. I'm sick of it personally. I'm just so over that era of Hollywood. That was a thing in the mid 2010s to now. We're still going through that. That's still happening. And yes, even though I enjoyed something like Spider-Man Far From Home, or excuse me, Spider-Man No Way Home last year, and a movie we're going to talk about later on, the way that those are done just feels way more tasteful and impactful than the three trio is back so they can help the world's food supply. I just thought this movie was terrible. I really, really didn't like it. Colin Trevorrow, I don't understand why studios keep going to this guy, and I'm grateful that we did not see Star Wars Episode 9 from him. Um, Say what you will about that film. Obviously, I like Star Wars. You all know this. But yeah, I don't know. Jurassic World Dominion was not a good time, and I mean, granted, I watched this one on streaming. I did not see this one in the theater. But yeah, I did not. I was not impressed with Jurassic World Dominion. All right, so the next one I have here is Uncharted. I hate being so negative. These next few are going to be pretty negative, like I said, but I thought this movie was awful. Um, I know some people were able to have a good time with it, but I just found it soulless, uninspired, and creepy. I did not enjoy it. I'm a huge fan of the Uncharted games. Naughty Dog is probably my favorite video game developer out there. And the fact that this movie had none of the involvement of anyone that worked on the games, basically, um, that shows. And I will never understand why this movie was so obsessed with being a setup to be, for like more movies when they easily could have. I mean, because what made Uncharted so great, the games, is you're kind of just thrown into the mix of things, and you know, you pick up on things through dialogue and the interactions of the characters. They don't have to explain the origins of everyone. Yes, they did that later on with Uncharted 3, which I think is probably the worst game in the series. Um, and yet they really dove into that element pretty hard in this film. The casting was just incorrect for basically everyone. Antonio Banderas as the villain, that lady as the secret villain, and then of course Tom Holland as Nathan Drake just didn't work. Why is he taking off his shirt? Nathan Drake is not known to be this really attractive guy. And then of course Mark Wahlberg as Sully, really bad. He's literally in a Papa John's pizza right now. I did think the girl that they got to play Chloe was actually pretty good, but again, the adaptation of these characters just feels really incorrect. She did the best she could with the material, but again, the material was not good. I really really do not want to see a sequel to this movie, even though it was teased at the end of this, but it made a decent amount of money. And I think it's still one of Sony's better performing films of the pandemic era. So we're unfortunately probably going to see more from Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, but I probably am going to skip it. I do not think I'm going to watch Uncharted 2 or whatever they're going to call it. All right, moving on. This one is another one I don't have a lot of great things to say about, and that's going to be Thor: Love and Thunder. Unfortunately, this is a film that made me very upset, and I hate doing this with these like big action franchises, but feeling so invested and stuff like that. But yeah, the MCU has had a really rocky road, and this film didn't help with that. The story here is almost non-existent. As a continuation of where things left off in Avengers Endgame with Thor, very disappointing. Nothing in this movie feels real. Even the stuff that happens at the end and the stakes, there are no stakes in this film because it's a comic book movie and we just don't have that anymore in these films. So anything impactful that does happen and feels like will have ramifications for the future doesn't really matter because, like I said, there are no stakes in this movie. Christian Bale as the villain, done by Taika Waititi. Why when I first heard that Gore the God Butcher was going to be in this movie, that's kind of when I knew. I was like, okay, this is going to be uh, rough because I don't understand why they would get Gore the God Butcher in this story and then have Taika Waititi do it. That just again doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, and it's also on top of that, I think a rather ugly movie. There's some pretty cool physical, like practical puppetry at the early beginnings of this movie, but later on it just becomes, CGI, and all these kids are covered in CGI, and they're fighting these really ugly CGI creatures. I don't care what they say. They were made by kids. They still look really ugly and horrible. I understand that was the intention, but they just look bad. Yeah, I just did not have a good time with Thor: Love and Thunder, and it really made me question why I even like the MCU, because it just it really brought me down. And thankfully, the MCU kind of redeemed itself towards the end of the year this year. We'll get to that, but yeah, I don't know. Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't think I'm ever going to watch this movie again. And like I collect every Marvel movie on Blu-ray. This is one that I just have no intention of going out and buying, even when it's on sale. We'll see. I'll probably get it eventually, but like I said, I'm probably never going to watch this film again. Speaking of films I will never watch again and are completely forgettable, The Gray Man, Netflix. They tried really hard this year, and this is a movie. Yep, expensive boilerplate. I do agree with that statement. Even still, this was a movie that like is entertaining, and you could probably really get into it if you like these kinds of movies. But as someone that does like these kinds of movies, I found it just so uninspired and lacking. And it's disappointing because the Russo brothers, I think, are a really good duo, and there's a lot of potential with the two of them, and they're huge nerds, which is why it's weird to me that they wanted to make this very generic, stereotypical action film, and they didn't do anything creative or interesting with it. Ryan Gosling actually is pretty good in this type of role. I wouldn't mind seeing him in more action roles. Um, Chris Evans is kind of just doing his thing in this movie, and I don't know. I kind of am struggling to remember things about it. So, speaking of Chris Evans, we got Lightyear. I was shocked how bad this movie was, and I think this is hopefully going to be kind of a signifier for Pixar and Disney and the higher ups there at Disney that we don't need 1,000 spin-offs for beloved franchises. Like I understand that this movie was like wrapped up in a lot of like political discussions, and the far right really pushed this movie hard, and like this anti like message about it. But I have no problems with the film on that level. Like I really like, if you hate this movie because it has a gay character in it, please grow up. That is the least of this movie's problems, right? I find the twist in this movie to be embarrassingly bad. The plot is really stupid, and like these are very paper thin things I feel like I'm saying about the movie, but it there's already videos out there kind of breaking it down, and like I don't really want to spend the energy talking about this one because I just found it so uninspired, and it's visually amazing. It is one of the best looking animated films I've ever seen, but I don't like the like it's almost too good looking, right? It looks almost too overdone and too over detailed, and it's a shame because this movie was really expensive and it bombed. And so um, I think that's a shame on one end, but it's also again I think hopefully a signifier to Hollywood that we don't need movies like this. Like I really hope that that's the message that they take away from it, and not the fact that like audiences are homophobic or whatever. Um, because like I said, I don't know. I really did not like this movie. I was just shocked how bad it was. And again, it's one that I'm never gonna watch. And it's a shame because I think Pixar, and like I get a lot of shit for saying this, but I really feel like Pixar just isn't the same anymore. They put out movies that just feel so boring and generic, and they used to be one of the most creative studios out there, and then they put out something like this. And yeah, I mean, overall, as a year for Disney animation, I think this was really bad. The next one we're going to talk about here is Strange World. And like compare this to last year, right? With Encanto. Encanto is like my favorite Disney film in forever. And this year they decided, and I don't really blame them to not promote this movie. And they basically wanted it to bomb so they could put it on Disney Plus, shove it under the rug, and move on because this movie's bad. I've heard some people say like, oh, it's not that bad. You're just too harsh. But I think I get a pass when I loved Encanto last year, and it's like I don't have this like anti-Disney agenda. Like I really don't understand like why there's people out there that get so upset when you criticize anything from Disney. As someone that loves Disney and has grown up with the brand and has seen them grow and change, I think we're in an era right now where we're almost in like dark age territory again, in my opinion. Um, and it's going to be interesting to see what the company does moving forward, especially with Bob Iger coming back as CEO, which is hilarious to me because you know, towards the ends of his tenure, a lot of people had problems with him, and then he is yet his successor was even worse, and so it's going to be interesting, of course, seeing what will happen with Disney going forward. But like I said, I just found the message in this movie to be almost offensive. The idea that like some of the things that the characters do in this movie are like immoral, but they're being played off as like, oh, they were trying, they did what they could. Like, if anyone in my life did the things that like the villain, or not the villain, but like the sympathetic villain does in this movie, I would probably never talk to them again. I understand that that was the point of the movie, that like you kind of need to look past their mistakes, but genuinely, some of the stuff in this movie is like just offensively horrifying. Um, Animation wise, I don't know. It's trying to go for like this pulp look, and I can appreciate that, but I don't know. I just again, and this is just like Lightyear. The right, the alt right, the kooks, that foam the rubes up out on the internet and stuff like that, and Facebook. They push this film again, the same thing where, oh, there's a gay person in it. They're pushing their agenda, and like I said with Lightyear, the least of this movie's problems is that it's trying to push that social message about that, and so that's why I'm really sick and tired of that in film criticism, where we're no longer looking at the movie itself and the ideas present in it. We're just looking at the labels and, the identities of the characters rather than really, you know, breaking apart why the film worked, why it didn't. And, that's something I really, really want to avoid in my criticisms of things. That, like, yes, like for example, that new National Treasure show, there's this really out of place scene where one of the main characters talks about like gender politics in the bathrooms, and I'm like, okay, this isn't, something that's happening in our world and something that we should discuss, but why is it in National Treasure? So like, of course, like I do have issues with stuff like that. Like there are, National Treasure is not the way to tackle that social issue. Whereas in Strange World, all it is just Ethan's gay, and that's kind of it. It's not like it's really saying anything about it or trying to give a message. That's kind of it. So I don't understand why like people are getting so bogged down in these things. But anyways, that's kind of a tangent. Strange World was really uninspired and dull and boring and kind of stupid. Moving on, Death of the Nile. So I have to admit, that first one, the Murder on the Orient Express, I think is a pretty good movie. It's one of my favorite Kenneth Branagh films, generally speaking. But I found Death in the Nile, and it could just be due to the cast. I just think maybe the cast isn't as good, and but also I just think the story and script isn't as good. But it was an entertaining watch. I had a good time with it. Of course, I know how the story ends. I know who done it and stuff like that. Yeah, but also this movie's really ugly. It definitely has that like COVID. We had to shoot this in a studio instead of on location where we probably wanted to vibes to it. And I know the first movie had some of that with like Israel, and especially when the train is like stuck in that tunnel after the avalanche. There's some like green screen studio vibes, but there was a lot more on set locations with that movie. But this one, it just lacked a lot of that. And giving Hercule Poirot his mustache like a backstory, even though it tied into actually a really really good ending scene, was weird. And they're doing another one. This is kind of what I don't. I just they're doing another one. And the way that this movie ends, if you've seen it, you kind of know what I'm talking about, where it feels really final. Yet they're going to be doing another one, which I just I don't even know if I'm gonna want to watch it. But yeah. All right, so back onto Cape Shit. We got Black Adam. So I'll admit I had a really good time with this movie when I watched it. Then again, I was like 2 beers down, deep by the end of it because I saw it in an alehouse cinema. Um, Everything about this movie except for Black Adam is pretty good. Like Black Adam himself or Teth Adam is kind of whatever. Doctor Fate, even though he was pretty good, was just like it's such a waste that he's spoilers, dead. Bringing back Henry Cavill at the end is hilariously embarrassing, considering everything that's going on right now with the DCEU. Um, so yeah, that's just weird. It's very boilerplate, but honestly, like if you like these kinds of movies like I do, you're probably gonna have a good time with it. The side characters are by far the best part. The Justice Society was really cool to see. Even though it doesn't really make sense within the rules of the DCEU, but there really are no rules of the DCEU anymore. So yeah, I don't really want to spend too much time talking about Black Adam. It was a good time. I'd probably watch it again, but yeah, I don't know. All right, moving on, we have Bullet Train. So I've seen some really mixed opinions about this movie, and I definitely am in that mixed category, leaning towards the negative. I thought this movie was way too ADHD. Like it's constantly, it's begging for your attention. It feels like a movie like designed to like where you're watching it at home, and they kind of designed it around the idea that like people are just on their phones all the time, and so the movie feels like, oh crap, we don't want them to look down at their phone for even a second. That's what it feels like. The movie's just constantly throwing things at you and constantly gagging and making jokes and goofing and swearing and blood and gore and whoa and fake deaths. And this movie had way too many fake deaths. I think this, way too complicated. This movie needed to be simplified, and I think it would have been a lot better. I understand a lot of people really enjoyed this movie. Especially like the message with the main character that you kind of need to overcome yourself and really take a step back. But I don't know. It also just kind of felt like a marketing tool for Sony's future movies with uh, Bad Bunny in this film, future going to be playing El Muerto in the Spider-Man universe, as well as Aaron Taylor Johnson in this movie, who is going to be playing Kraven the Hunter in the Sony Spider-Man universe. So, yeah, there was just a lot about this movie where I was like, it feels desperate. I liked Joey King's character and performance. Sandra Bullock shows up for 5 seconds, and it was entertaining enough. But I thought it really overstayed its welcome, and by the end of it, you're just exhausted. That's kind of how I felt about it. But yeah, I understand if you really had a good time with this, more power to you. It's not even that I think it's dumb. I just think it's just way too overindulgent. That's kind of my problem with it. It's like going to McDonald's and having like 5 servings of fries when really you only needed two. That's kind of what it feels like. All right, moving on, we have The Lost City. This movie was actually kind of a surprise. When I first saw the trailer for this, I thought it looked really stupid. Um, but I had a good time with it. I really actually enjoyed this movie. I was mostly impressed with the actual depth that there was to the characters. Like they actually bothered to not only give them good material, but let them really give like decent performances. This is one of my favorite movies I've seen Channing Tatum in a long time, as well as Sandra Bullock. I like her a lot, but there's certain things, especially recently, like Bird Box and the like, where she's just kind of bad. But in this movie, she really gets into it, and I really liked this like reclusive side to her. Like you don't really see her in that kind of role, and I really liked that. I liked kind of the hidden depth between Channing Tatum's character and the idea that like don't judge a book by its cover, kind of, right? And it's entertaining. I thought this movie was entertaining, and the Brad Pitt cameo is a really great time. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't really have anything that negative to say about it. It's become one of my family's like favorite movies ever since it got put on Paramount Plus again. Because we saw this in theaters, and I'm really glad I did. But once it was put on Paramount Plus, like my mom and my sister have watched it like 3 to 4 times in the last month and a half. Like they love this movie. But it's a movie I have no problem putting on and watching. I might end up actually getting it on Blu-ray. I enjoyed it that much. And we're kind of getting to that territory now where, yeah, it's like I'm kind of running out of bad things to say necessarily about these films. Of course, there's going to be some that I will, but yeah, The Lost City, as a blockbuster, I think it's a Sony movie too, actually. Oh no, it's not. It's Paramount. What am I saying? Paramount had a pretty good year this year, as we'll talk about later. But yeah, I thought The Lost City was a really good time. All right, Prey. This was a movie I had really high expectations for due to the word of mouth and buzz that it got, around the time of its release. And, I thought it was okay. I thought it was good. But it's, like I said with Bullet Train, this movie's almost too simple. And I kind of understand that's the appeal of it for people, but I kind of wanted a little more from it. Very simple, which is not a bad thing. Um, but I wanted a little more depth to the main character. I loved watching the movie in Comanche. You know, I watched the first time I watched it in English, and then the second time I watched it in Comanche, and watching it in Comanche was actually better. But I wish that the movie was dubbed in English and natively spoken in Comanche, rather than natively spoken in English and dubbed in Comanche. That was really disappointing. I think it would have been, you know, especially since this was not a theatrical release, would have been a really cool, bold move to see because again, this is a Disney movie under that Disney Fox umbrella and they put it onto Hulu, and it did not get a theatrical release. However, I'm telling you, I probably would have seen this in a theater. You know, kind of reversing the role of the Predator and Prey. Like, this was a decent movie, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing another similar to this. They tease at the end that this is connected to, especially Predator 2 with the gun. From the Civil War. You know, that's really cool. But you know, I would not complain to see more of this style of Predator movie. Play into it a little bit more and just like go all in if you want this to be from a Native American cultural perspective. Like just do it natively spoken in their tongue. Don't have it in English and then dub over it. I feel like that's kind of a weird complaint, but that's just how I feel. I really think it would have been a lot cooler. Actually, you know, it would have felt so much more immersive, even if you're going to be reading subtitles the whole time. I think it would have been really cool and really immersive if they had done it like that. But hey, I didn't make the movie, so I don't make the choices. All right, we're gonna move on to the next one, and this is this is one of my biggest disappointments of the year. That's going to be Alex Garland's Men. So, if you don't know, Alex Garland, um, even still, is one of my favorite directors and minds out there for film and storytelling. I adore Ex Machina. I think it's a great film, beautiful, heartwarming, touching, great. And then Annihilation is my favorite science fiction movie of all time. I adore it. It took this idea from the source material of the book, which is pretty good, and just expanded upon it and made it so much more interesting and thought provoking. And whereas Men Men has really big I hope she sees this bro vibes, okay? And I had this issue with Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho from last year, where it felt almost too. It was just pandering almost. Like by the end of Men, we get it. Like if you've seen this movie, you understand what I mean. And I feel like a movie up higher up on this list did what Men tried to do better. I, I really wanted to love this movie. I was so excited. He was doing more of a horror, tension focused movie. And it just ended up kind of disappointing me. It's a gorgeous movie. I love how it's shot. Great green color. You know, it really brings that like rural United Kingdom, you know, English vibe. The performances are all good, but I just felt like the material was not there, and it was very surface level and pandering. That's how I felt about Men. And I hope she sees this, bro. All right. Number 14, we have DC League of Super Pets. I found this to be a pretty good surprise. I was not expecting this movie to make me cry. I had a good time with DC League of Super Pets or DC Pets. Um, it was heartwarming and a good time. Granted, I watched it with my little cousins in the theater, and so maybe that's kind of why I enjoyed it more, but I think there was enough here for adults to appreciate as well as for kids to get into. It's just like this is what animated movies are for, man. And like I really want to see that new Puss in Boots movie because I've heard very similar things where I mean, I've heard people claim it's one of the best animated films of all time. We'll see. Well, I'll watch it and we'll see. But yeah, DC League of Super Pets, very good surprise. I would not mind seeing a sequel, but it also really makes me want a more traditional Superman movie because John Krasinski's Superman in this was actually really good. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the world of DC Pets. But I had a good time with this. If you've not seen it, I do actually recommend checking it out. It's only like an hour and a half. But yeah. All right, speaking of hour and a half movies, just kidding. We have Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Okay. I want to be very clear. I went into this movie not expecting to like it. Um, I was not a big fan of the original film, and I get a lot of shit for this. I know. I'm a white dude, and apparently, if I say I don't like that first movie or think it's not that great, I get piled upon. But I'm not that into that first movie. Whereas this movie, I felt so emotionally invested. By the end of it, I was riveted. It's a very riveting film, especially for a Marvel comic book movie. It was thought provoking, and it felt like they really had an idea and they ran with it, and I loved that about this movie. It's bloated at some points, and it does feel like it has that Marvel like template problem where they have to introduce Ironheart so we can watch our Disney Plus show next year, and we have to have Bilbo Baggins in here so that he can be in Secret Invasion, another show coming next year, and we got to have Elaine from Seinfeld in here so she can set up the Thunderbolts, and like it had that stuff in it, but at the same time, the core of this movie was so strong that honestly, I wish a lot of the fat was trimmed. But Namor, one of the better villains in recent memory in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Shuri, a character I did not think could be a front and center lead, ended up being one of the best parts of this movie. And I cannot believe what Ryan Coogler and his team managed to do with this movie. And the fact that I walked out of it riveted, and just, I only gave it 3.5, but it's close to that 4-star territory in a lot of ways. But yeah, I had a really good time with this movie. It's long, it's gonna make you feel emotions, but I really, really was impressed with this, and I hope we see more like this in the future for Marvel Studios and less Thor: Love and Thunder. All right, number 12. This is going to be Pearl. So I'll talk about it a little bit later. X and Pearl, for some people, are some of the biggest surprise of the year from Ty West. Ty West is kind of a divisive director, but X and Pearl seem to have been really latched onto by the film community and just beloved. I had a really good time with Pearl and X this year, but I think Pearl was just a little less good than Pearl or than X, but I still had a good time with it. Mia Goth, Mia, I'm gonna call her Mia. Mia Goth, she is, I'm said she is amazing. She is such a talent. And this movie has one of my favorite performances of the year in it with her monologue that's like 7 minutes straight, uncut. And she starts it like completely normal and she's ending with like in tears, and it is phenomenal. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it and talking about it. But I think Pearl thematically was not as interesting to me as X. I also thought visually, even though it was really cool, we don't get a lot of horror movies set in the daytime. But this did that. And the kills at the end were great. But I think I liked X better, and we'll get to X. But yeah, Pearl and X, really great duology. They're gonna make a third one because we'll see how that goes. It's called Max Scene with Triple X. We'll see how it goes. I don't really know how you continue the story after X, but we will see, I guess. I mean, I'll be there. I really liked Pearl. I was there day one for Pearl. X was a great time. So yeah. Um, Congrats to Ty West and A24 for making kind of a mini franchise almost. I love that we got these films, and even though I'm not like super in love with them like a lot of people are, um, like I said, I mean, people have like embraced Pearl and X as like the greatest of all time, like of horror and thriller. And I'm not quite in that camp, but I think Pearl and X are a great time. And okay, I'll talk more about X when we get there. All right, probably, I mean, easily my favorite Marvel project of the year is going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. One sec. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There we go. I enjoyed this movie. I understand that for a lot of people it was not very good, but I think I'm really biased, of course. So Sam Raimi coming back to comic book movies and Doctor Strange for the first time was amazing. Seeing him behind the camera just made something like Spider-Man No Way Home look so amateur. And I'm sorry to say John Watts, but I think John Watts is one of the most bland and boring studio directors we have ever seen. Whereas Sam Raimi, even though he is a studio director, he brings such a flair and like great mise en scène to his movies. And you can just tell with the amount. I mean, if you've seen the behind the scenes for this movie, the practical sets that they built over in London for this movie, insane, beyond, like extra mile. They went the extra mile for this movie, and they didn't have to. They could have been like Thor: Love and Thunder and cheaped out, and or even though that movie was really expensive, they could have, just shot it in the studio in the volume and called it a day. But no, Sam Raimi and his team went to work. And even though there's elements in this movie like the Illuminati that feel really shoehorned in. I still had a really good time with this. I enjoyed Doctor Strange's character arc. The insane final battle with music notes was crazy, and then him, possessing a body, like some of my favorite moments in a theater for a Marvel movie were in this film, and like at home, I still think it's a good watch, even though it has its issues. Certainly, I think Michael Waldron was clearly really stretched on this one to meet some deadlines, and that's unfortunate because this could have easily been top five MCU if they had more time in the oven. But I had a really good time with this movie. I would love to see Sam Raimi come back for Doctor Strange 3. Um, but I mean, that's just me. I really had a good time with this movie. America Chavez, I think, is still one of the best introductions to a new character that we've seen in Phase 4. In a project like this. So I had a really good time with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It's a vibe for me. It's a vibe. All right, so we're getting into the top 10. I can't believe this. We're already almost done with this video. But number 10 is going to be The Menu. So again, like Pearl and X, this seems to be a movie that people adore and are really, really, really into. And I can understand that. The performances are really good. The script is could be better. But what this movie does so well is really just like gets your attention, right? From granted, the opening scene is kind of bad, but after that, once you get to the island and you get into the kitchen and the dinner, the food is about to be served. It builds up the mystery with these different characters, and you kind of like figure out who they are and what they do and like why they're here and kind of what Ralph Fiennes his character has against them. And I just thought that was great. But I think where the movie lacks for me is I found its messaging a little muddled. I'm not really sure if we were supposed to sympathize with Ralph Fiennes or if we were supposed to be against him. Again, I understand like a lot of movies like this are not black and white, but I also kind of found Anya Taylor-Joy's character bland. Of course, I love her as an actress. She's my probably up. I mean, she's up there as my favorite actress working today. But I don't know what it was about her role in this. It wasn't even her performance. It was definitely just the way the character was written, where I couldn't really get into it. And fuck her boyfriend for spoilers. Uh, Hiring her and paying her to come to this island. I mean, she's a sex worker, and he seems to have, I like that where they seem to have some form of relationship, like they know each other. But the bottom line, she's a sex worker, and he paid her to come die basically. So fuck him. I'm really glad that he died. Um, and it's a mood. At the end, she eats her hamburger, so it's a mood. All right, number 9 is going to be X. This movie was such a good surprise. Like I said earlier, Pearl and X, some of the most, some of my favorite stuff to come out of the year. Ty West really came swinging with X. It has a great 70s grindhouse feel to it that I really enjoyed. Um, what else can I say? One second. It has just this great 70s grindhouse feel to it. But it also has this like darkness to it that I really liked. Like Pearl, the old lady, not a good person, as we learned down in Pearl. Not a good person, and that was really interesting. And then to see, I mean, Jenna Ortega is in this, and she's now one of the biggest names out there at the moment, thanks to Netflix and the Wednesday show. But like, she's in this weird indie horror movie about a porno, and I feel like if you told people that really like Wednesday that, they would be like, oh, that's weird. Like, there's literally a scene in this where Jenna Ortega's like, I'm done being this cute, goody two shoes girl. I want to be a slut now. And it's like, what? Like, it's crazy. And it's a hilarious movie, by the way. I thought this movie was so funny. Um, I really had a good time with it. I have it on Blu-ray, and I need to pick up Pearl on Blu-ray. I wish they would do a 4K dual pack of both because these movies look great. I want to see them preserved better. But again, what else can I say? Maya Goth, my God, dude. Just a huge talent. I cannot wait to see more from her. She's worked alongside my favorite actress, like I said earlier, Anya Taylor-Joy in the Jane Austen adaptation Emma. She was really good in that, and then of course she brings her A game to this. And there's rumors that she's gonna like co-direct Maxine with Ty West, which I think could be kind of interesting. But no, I think Maya Goth is easily one of the best actresses working at the moment. Like, I have nothing but good things to say about her. Just the range and everything that she has in this movie is just great. And I don't know, I had a really good time with X. It's a great time to just watch it and get into the spooky season and stuff like that. But let's move on to the second highest blockbuster on my list this year, and that is going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. Sue me, AMC, but I ended up taking your 3D glasses because you helped transport me back to Pandora. So I've had a bit of a rocky road relationship with the Avatar franchise. That original film, as a kid, I was never really that into it. Um, it's decent and good. But then when I watched it again a couple years later, it was like, okay, I can kind of understand this because I was going to Disney World and I wanted to get back into it and really for Animal Kingdom and stuff like that. And then before Way of the Water came out, I was like, you know what? I'm really going to give Avatar a genuine second shot and see what the buzz is about. And I don't know what it is. It could have been the fact that I was binging every James Cameron film, but I went out, I bought the collector's edition Blu-ray with the extended version, all the behind the scenes and everything like that. And it may not be my favorite James Cameron film out there. It may not be even one of, a movie that I would consider in my top 100 or anything like that, but James Cameron knows how to make movies. And that is just so evidently clear, not only in this film, but also The Way of Water. I like this movie quite a bit. It definitely has its issues, and I'm disappointed that even though my biggest criticism of this film is the story is way too simplistic. And granted, they did improve on the characters a little bit. I actually walked out of Way of Water rather interested in what they had set up with some of the characters, like Kiri and even Korich. Like, I don't know, I had a great time with this movie. Seeing it in 3D was so amazing and so immersive. I cannot wait to see this again. But I will say I was a little disappointed by the plot. I really was kind of hoping that this would set things up and really move things forward, but kind of all it does is set things up and tease things for later. So I think Avatar 3 and 4 are going to be great. There's nowhere to go but up with these movies. The technology in this is amazing. Like, this is one of the best looking movies I think I've ever seen. Uh, I'm gushing about it right now, and honestly, like when I see it again, I might bump it up to 4 stars, and it might go up a few slots here with me, because I'm looking at some of the movies above this right now, especially the one right above it, and I'm like, maybe I enjoyed it more than that one did. But yeah, The Way of Water, excuse me, great time at the movies. But don't drink any water while watching it, or else you will have to go pee. But since I'm going to watch it a second time, I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable having to get up or anything like that. But thank you, James Cameron. Thank you, Fox. Thank you, Disney, for delivering this to us. I really hope this movie does well enough so that we can see continuations of this, because at this point, I'm invested enough to actually care and be interested. I'm super into the setting of Avatar. It's actually so well realized, and I really enjoy that. But anyways, I'm kind of running out of time, so we got to get moving. We're going to move on to number seven, The Northman. This is a film by my current favorite director of all time, being Robert Eggers. Robert Eggers is a visionary. He has such a knack for combining mythology, storytelling, and media literacy and, you know, literary analysis into film. The Northman is this amazing adventure Viking revenge tale. And it takes that classic trope of Viking revenge where, he's so hell bent on revenge that he ends up dying himself and just runs with it. It may not be my favorite Eggers film, and that is kind of what I was saying earlier. I honestly might like Avatar more than The Northman. I was definitely a little let down by The Northman, especially with how much I love The Witch and how much I love The Lighthouse. This is probably my least favorite Eggers film, but it is still a really good time. We just do not see movies like this enough. I would love to see Eggers get his hands on an IP, see what he could actually do and bring to the table. I know that sounds kind of cringe to say, but like this man kind of proved himself with this movie that he can handle a big budget, he can handle a big production, because this movie is 10 times bigger than both The Witch and The Lighthouse. And I think that's what makes it so impressive. The fact that he was able to handle it, and the fact that he was able to juggle all these things and the effects and the props and the sets. Great time at the movies. I have the 4K Blu-ray. I've not rewatched it since the cinema, but yeah, I mean, just thinking about it back on it, this movie was great. I had a really good time with it. Um, I mean, we're at the point where in the list right now where I'm gushing about almost all of these movies. Only negative thing I think I really have to say about this is it's not quite as emotionally investing. To me, I don't even really remember the main character's name, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I had a decent enough time with it, and the ending is insane. Moving on, we have The Banshees of Inisherin. I think this film is splendid. If I could somehow fit this into my top five, I absolutely would, because this is a film. This is a movie. This is, I mean, great. Like, I was so happy with this movie. Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and In Bruges are both great films, but I think this movie has such a core to it, such a heart that it's so endearing. And I loved the characters. I loved Colin Farrell in this film, and I loved um, God damn it, what's his name? Brendan Gleeson. I loved Brendan Gleeson in this movie. The dynamic, the heartbreak, and everything. And Carrie Condon in this movie was amazing as well. To actually see her on the big screen again was a great experience. This movie is just such a good time. It is a downer movie. You are probably not going to feel great once you finish this, but I'm telling you, you should definitely go check this movie out. It's currently streaming on HBO Max at the moment in the United States. Definitely go check it out. Go into it with as little information as you can, because I'm telling you, this is one of the best films I have seen in a long time. I really enjoyed it. Moving on to our top five, we have Barbarian. This is one of my favorite movie experiences of the year. Everyone's talking about how crazy it is and how how unpredictable it is and everything like that. But man, what a great time at the movies, because I I was blown away by some of the stuff that happens in this movie. And speaking, like I said earlier, about Alex Garland's Men, this is a first-time director from Barbarian. Yes, Zach Krieger did direct this a really horrible movie called Miss March, but he technically co-directed it, so he doesn't really count it as his directorial debut, but whatever, it exists. Whereas Barbarian is this really great, rich, thematic thing that also has commentary about cancel culture and sexual harassment and toxic masculinity, and it's presented so much better in this film than in Men. And like I said with earlier, you have a great strong lead in this. You have really good like twisting of expectations with Bill Skarsgård's character, where you think you're not quite sure how to feel about him, and then once whatever happens to him happens, it's like you really feel that, you feel sad, and then it's like by the end of the movie, like there's just you're beaten up and torn apart. And I just had such a great time with Barbarian, one of the better horror films in recent memory. I liked it more than X. I liked it more than Pearl. It was definitely better than the Chainsaw Massacre remake, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I just had a great time with Barbarian. Let's move on and talk about number four, which is going to be The Batman. I mean, come on, this movie was well worth the wait. I had my skepticism and my qualms going into this, but I was just so enraptured by it. And this is a movie with brilliant set design and mise en scène. Everything about the attention to detail and the world building, even though it uses the volume at some points, it's still just such an immersive film. And I had such a great time with The Batman. I've watched it like 6 times this year alone. And like I said, casting, this movie completely changed my perspective on casting announcements. When casting announcement was done for this film, it's like Robert Pattinson as Batman, what? Andy Serkis as Alfred, that's weird. Colin Farrell as the Penguin, what? What's going on? But this movie just shattered my expectations. I genuinely thought going into this was going to be a mess. They're juggling too many villains. The Penguin, Falcone, and the Riddler. Like, this is going to be terrible. Like, what? And Catwoman. But it ended up just being this great story. And this amazing, like, Batman felt like a hero at the end of this film. And that's been my biggest issue. Sorry. I can't believe I'm crying. That was my biggest issue with Zack Snyder's Batman, is he does not feel like a hero. And in this movie at the end, when when that lady's reaching out to Pattinson, and so good, so good. I have had an effect here. Like, yes, you have, man. You had an effect on me and the whole audience, man. I had such a good time with the Batman. Matt Reeves, I cannot wait to see what he has next for us with this universe and his version of the character. My only issue with the movie, genuinely, it's a little long, but the Joker did not need to be in this film. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to expand on that. The Joker did not need to be in this film. Moving on to number three, and this top three, man, it is so hard to differentiate between them. I think these next three are going to go into my top favorite films of all time, and it's going to constantly be shifting around. But number three is going to be Tar. This film blew me away. It is spectacular, okay? At 158 minutes, it is quite long, but Todd Field comes back swinging. His last movie being in the bed, or excuse me, not in the bedroom. Was it The Tree or Little Children in 2006 with Kate Winslet, and he comes back swinging with one of the best films I have ever seen. It is genuinely an experience. Kate Blanchett, by the you're kind of blown away by the star power at the beginning as she's delivering these monologues, but by the end of it, you don't even really see Kate Blanchett. You see Lydia Tarr, and I think that's what's so amazing about this video or this movie. I've seen people say, like, especially people, casual people that don't really understand. They're like, "Wait, Lydia Tarr, this isn't a biopic. Like, it's presented like that," and I think it's supposed to be. I think the idea of presenting this as factual almost makes it so much more intriguing because it really feels real. The reactions to like I said with Barbarian, okay, this was the year of cancel culture being done right. Tar tackles these things so expertly, and yet it doesn't give a stance on them. The best scene in this movie, of course, everyone talks about it, is the scene in the school when she's talking about with that student about how he feels about Bach being this bigot and how that ruins the way that he views Bach's art. Yet Lydia presents, counter arguments to that, and by the end of it, no agreement or anything like that is really met. They're just presenting these ideas and letting the audience decide for themselves. And I just thought this movie was so good. Phonetic, or the sound, just the mise en scène. I cannot wait to get this movie on Blu-ray. This is I just think this is one of the best films I've ever seen. And there's still two more that I think are better than it. But like I said, they're going to be constantly switching around. I had such a good time with Tar. It is a must watch, in my opinion, from this year. I'm so glad I went out to the theater. I had to drive like 30 miles to go see this because nowhere near me was playing it, even though I live in the biggest city in my state. What the heck is that about? But I'm telling you, man, Tar, genuinely spectacular, phenomenal. I want it to win all the awards next year, in February. What else can I say about Tar? I don't really know. I don't know because it is just that good. I'm like speechless almost trying to think about what else to say about it. Give it a shot. Genuinely, just such a great film. Number two, all right. This is probably going to be a lot of people's number one, and oh God, that is going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once. This movie, man, I saw it opening weekend. I didn't know what to expect, and I was blown away. The Dan, or what do they call themselves? Daniels. I can't remember if they call themselves the Daniels or Daniels. I think it's Daniels. They delivered such a heartfelt film filled with, and I love hearing them talk about this movie because they are almost kind of shocked and surprised how many people are just in love with this movie. Because it is just, again, it is such a good time. Um, it's just one of those movies that it's so hard to even talk about because you really just need to see it to kind of understand. Um, it is such a heartfelt, heartwarming film, and by the end of it, you're just like torn, torn. It is just such a good film. Everyone knows this. Okay, it's colorful, it's beautiful, it's a great time, it's hilarious, it's funny, it makes you cry. It's like one of the best lines in the movie is about doing taxes and laundry, and like yet it's like the one of the most gut wrenching and heartfelt lines of the whole year. Okay, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a masterpiece film. It is just such a good time at the movies, and I think it will easily go down as one of the most beloved films of all time. I mean, look at this. On Letterboxd, it is one of the highest rating, one of the highest rated films ever. Look at this. It's on 13. It's the number 13 in the top 250 on Letterboxd. What a great film. I can't say anything else because if you've not seen it, just go watch it. Seriously, give it a shot. You will not be disappointed. All right, number one. If you have a keen eye and remember what I said earlier about blockbusters, number one is of course going to be Top Gun Maverick. Color me surprised. Okay, I thought this movie was gonna be stupid. I think the original Top Gun is dumb. I don't really care about it. But this movie blew me away. Okay, I have it is so rare for a movie that I think looks stupid to just sweep me off my feet, slap my ass, and like put me in my place. Because when this movie starts and he's riding that on that bike, and then he's getting in the stealth jet and he's going to Mach 10, that is movie magic, okay? And no one does it better than Tom Cruise at the moment, man. He just put out that crazy video of him skydiving, saying thanks for watching Top Gun Maverick. This man has such a dedication to what he does, and you can really feel it in this movie. Yes, it does have elements of being kind of this. It's directed by Tom Kaczynski and or Joseph Kosinski, sorry, and yeah, there is Joseph Kosinski right here. But it does have elements of Tom kind of being the producer director rather than but it's still such a phenomenal time at the movies. I was blown away when I saw this in the theater, and I want to point out I saw this movie 2 whole months after it came out. I saw it on Father's Day 2022 with my grandfather, and he had already seen it. He was raving about it, and like, man, I cannot believe I'm even sitting here telling you. Like, months ago, if you knew anything about me, I was kind of poo-pooing this movie. I was like, I don't understand like what the hype is for this movie. But I just had such a good time with this one. I was invested with the characters. I thought the cast was great. I loved Phoenix, Bob, Hangman, and even Rooster. Just Miles Teller, man, what a talent. Great film, hilarious too. I love the ending. I have nothing but good things to say about Top Gun Maverick. I think genuinely I have zero criticisms about it. Um, I loved this movie, and I watched it again at home. One of the best 4K Blu-rays out there. The sound is could be a little better, but the visual picture quality, this top 10, man. As you can see, I've just been gushing and gushing because these are the movies that remind me. These top five, this top 10, right? These are all movies that remind me why I love this medium and why I care so much about film. Banshees, Barbarian, The Batman, Tar, Everything Everywhere, Top Gun Maverick. These are all films that I just had such a great time with and made me remember why I love this medium, and it made it removed some of the bad tastes that I had earlier in the year with Uncharted and Thor. And it's like, even though I had to step through even though I just step through some shit to get to the finish line here. Yeah, I hope you understand that I just had such a good time with movies this year. And yes, there's like four more things, being Puss in Boots, The Fablemans, Babylon, which I'm interested to see it. Once movies that get that mixed of a reaction, I'm way more interested in seeing than a lot of the stuff that gets almost endless praise. And then of course, Puss in Boots, or excuse me, Glass Onion. Those are the only four this year that I have not had a chance to check out yet. And if I do, maybe I'll make videos about them. But I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, please let me know what your favorite movie of the year is, as well as your favorite performance. My favorite performance of the year is a tie between, of course, Cate Blanchett as Lydia Tarr and Mia Goth as Pearl, because I just thought I loved movies this year. I had such a good time not only watching them but discussing them with people. So like I said, please comment down below your favorite movie of the year and your favorite performance. Was there a movie on this list you think I should check out, or is there a movie you really disagreed with? Did you really like Jurassic World Dominion? Did you love The Gray Man? Did you think Lightyear was an underrated masterpiece? Let me know. I want to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys one more time before the end of the year. It'll probably be like January though. I will be recording my pickups video shortly after Christmas, obviously, because if I get anything for Christmas, I want to have those in the video. So I will be recording that over the next few days. So yeah, just stay tuned, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, please have a good one. Okay?